All right, hi everyone. So my name is Marissa, and today I'll be spilling the tea on misconceptions I had in my first year. So essentially, I will be telling you what I thought I knew when I came to the UK, and actually, what did I find out when I got to uni. So a general outline of what I will be presenting today will be firstly a brief introduction about myself, and the misconceptions I have will be broken down into two categories. And one will be lifestyle, which will cover cost of living, weather, commute, and making friends. And next one is academic misconceptions, which I will cover knowledge gap, studying method, university ranking, and then academic versus personal development. To start things off, a little bit of introduction about myself. So I studied my SPM in a school called Asia Pacific Smart School. And then I was offered a scholarship to do my A-level in College Raya UEM. And afterwards, I did chemical engineering in Imperial College London. So currently, I am in third year, which means I am expected to graduate next year. When I came for the first time, there were a lot of things that I researched and I thought I knew, but when I finally came to the uni, it was very different from what I thought. So before I actually start, I ask you, what are the things that you actually think about when you think about studying in the UK? Do you think that it's, how do you think about the weather? How do you think about the cost of living? And it would be great if you could put it in the chat box so that we can together review it. Anyone would like to share what they think about studying in the UK or what they expect about studying in the UK? All right, if nobody's gonna say anything, then I will start my first point. Okay, so the first misconception that I will be telling you is about cost of living. So it is very common when you first get to the UK that you would think, oh, it is so expensive everywhere. And you would think, oh, the current conversion is like one pound to £5, so everything is gonna be times 5. However, I just want to break this misconception and say this is not always the case. To present this, I will show you of a shopping list that I did. So I collected a few things that typically a student would buy over a week. And it's from both from Tesco Malaysia and Tesco UK. So typically, like for breakfast for a week, you think, okay, you buy cornflakes, you buy bread, eggs, and then for lunch, you probably have pasta. And then for dinner, you probably have rice, chicken, and vegetables. So in Malaysia, in total, you will spend about 107 ringgit, give and take. However, in the UK, for the exact same items that you will buy in Malaysia, this would be the cost. So you can see from the amount that I showed you, the total amount is actually very different. But once you break it down, if you view everything from breakfast, lunch, and dinner, there is actually for breakfast and lunch only about 6 ringgit difference. However, this is for a week. So typically about a meal is only about 1 ringgit difference. So you would think it's not that bad. But if you look at dinner, it is so different from 38 ringgit in Malaysia and 90 ringgit in Malaysia. So what's the difference? The only difference that I could point out was only the price of the rice. Yes, in Malaysia is about like 15 ringgit for 5 kg of rice. In the UK, for that rice, it was £8. So meaning to say that if you go grocery shopping in the UK, it's not everything that's expensive. There are certain ingredients that maybe that's not as common, then that will be very expensive. So if you are planning to do your shopping or weekly groceries, you can actually substitute these items like once in a while to kind of lower the cost. And this will really help you to greatly reduce your cost of living and make everything more affordable. But then you always hear that, oh, it's so expensive, but where does it come from? So essentially, it comes from two different things. First of all, looking at the lunch menu, the pasta menu, you typically spend about £8 a week, which means it's about £1.20 per dish. However, if you go out for, let's say, a chain pasta, it will be about £10 a plate. So, meaning to say, if you actually go out for your meals, it will be close to 10 times more expensive than if you were to cook. You will always hear about this, that if you cook, you save a lot of money, but you never actually imagine how much. Because the amount of money that you save from cooking in Malaysia is very different from the amount of money that you will be saving if you cook in the UK. So if you actually tailor your lifestyle, you can save a lot of money from your cost of living. But that's not it. You can also save your money from rent. But this is based on location. So I did a comparison of rent from 3 different locations with 3 different price points. And this is what I got for a student accommodation, for a single bedroom, and relatively close to uni. So as you can see, in London, it is about £250 per week for a student accommodation. Whereas for, let's say, Cardiff, it's only about £130 a week. So it's about half of the price in London. So in my conclusion, that looking at the cost of living, so if you see the cost of living index is over 100 for each category. And you can see that the major game player in the cost of living would be your rent. So if you choose your location wisely from the start, you can actually save a lot of money. And because of the different price in rent, it means to say that studying in the UK cover a large range of an individual's willingness to pay. So choose your location wisely, choose your lifestyle wisely, and you can actually save a lot of money for your cost of living. All right, so moving on to the next point. Misconception number 2 will be about weather. So it is common when you learn in school that you have autumn in September, winter in December, and then spring in March, and summer in June. However, is it always the case? So I gathered a few data from the UK average temperature in 2019. And normally when I was studying abroad, that my rule of thumb, whenever it's below 10 degrees, it's very cold. That's when I go all out with my 3 layers. That's when I have my thick winter coat. So as you can see from the graph, out of 12 months that we have in a year, 6 months would be very cold in the UK. However, if you think about going back in the summer, you typically spend about only 8 to 9 months in the UK. Meaning to say, most of the time you're in the UK, it gets very cold. So my conclusion from this after my first year is that it gets cold for at least 6 months of your time there. And when I say cold, it means you are in your winter coat. And also, it doesn't snow that much. It actually doesn't snow at all, except for maybe places up in the north like Scotland. So actually, what can you expect about the weather in the UK? Well, first of all, it rains a lot. So if you are planning to go to the UK, make sure you have a waterproof jacket, you have an umbrella, and also it gets quite cold. I remember spending the night with 5 layers of clothes just because it was that cold. And also it gets dark very early in the day. So normally in Malaysia, it only gets dark around, let's say 7 p.m. or maybe 8 p.m. But in the UK, for the equivalent darkness, it would be about 3 p.m. This means that you have lesser daylight. But after a while, you actually get used to this and you actually manage to plan your time wisely. And lastly, there's a lot of wind in the UK. So a little bit about the wind, it actually affects how cold it is. And here's a screenshot of what I took back in December. So last December, I went to Cambridge, and then I thought, oh, okay, it's 6 degrees. It's okay, it's not that bad. But if you look closely into the image, you will see that another red box that says, what does it feel like? So it feels like 0 degrees. Why the difference? Why is it 6 degrees and why do I feel like it's 0 degrees? The difference is that the presence of wind during that day. With a strong wind, or actually even if it's not that strong, if it's just mild wind, it will actually really affect your temperature during the day. So make sure that if you go to the UK that you always keep tab on this, and then you see like, okay, what does it actually feels like? And then really prepare for yourself to go out for that temperature. So my advice is that invest on thermal wear and also sweater. So when you pack out for the UK, if you have a lot of summer clothes, don't waste a lot of your space bringing all of them to the UK, because you will not be using it as much. Bring a lot of sweater, thermal wear, and bring like heat tech from Malaysia, because it can get a lot cheaper in Malaysia. And be prepared for the cold before you come. Okay, coming to my point number 3 is about commute. And okay, so when I'm in Malaysia, when I think about commute, I would think, first of all, okay, I have to find an Uber or I have to find a car. And then the second thing, I would think about public transport. And my last ever option will be walking. It's because it's very hot in Malaysia and I would sweat a lot. But one thing that I found very different about studying in the UK is that it is the complete opposite. In the UK, whenever you think about commuting from one place to another, you will first of all think that, okay, I walk to that place. If it's too far, can I get a public transport? And then last but not least is Uber, because Uber is very expensive in the UK. But you might think, is it safe? Is it okay to walk? And the answer is yes. And these are the reasons why. So first of all, the UK is constructed in a way that is very convenient to walk. So they have designated pathways, they have a lot of walk through the parks that will actually cut the distance and therefore make it more convenient to walk. And secondly, because it is a common practice in the UK to walk, you have a lot of people around you, it will feel a lot safer when you walk. And as well, because as I mentioned before, that UK gets cold for most of the time, it actually makes it a lot better to walk because it's just cool breeze and you walk through the park and you see all the sceneries. So lastly, believe it or not, that cars actually stop for you at crossroads. So you don't need to exercise your power of the hand, because the cars will actually stop for you even if you try to stop for them. So meaning to say, it is very safe to walk in the UK, and generally my rule of thumb is that if it's less than 30 minutes of walking, then you walk. Because not only it is a pleasant feeling to walk, but it also actually promotes a more healthy lifestyle, because I realized that once I was in uni, that I started to become more active. I felt less sluggish as well, because I kept on having to walk from one place to another. So it is very good to walk. Okay, my last point about lifestyle misconception is that about making friends. So here's a picture of my friends and I when we went on a trip to Bournemouth. But however, when I was in first year, I had a bit of, I would say, difficulty, and because I guess I was scared. It was because that I had maybe accent difference. When you first come to uni, you will realize that you talk a bit differently from the locals. So I would say most of the time, but sometimes they couldn't understand what I was saying, although I was actually talking to them in English as well. And also the difference in social culture. Most of my friends in the beginning, they will always go to the student union, to the pub, to talk over things. But it wasn't actually my thing when I first started uni. And lastly, because you come from different countries, so you will have different things to talk about. There are certain things that they say that you can't relate to. And there are certain things that we say, such as like, oh, I had a really good nasi lemak last night. And they will be like, what is that? So, however, that this should not be, this should not stop you from making any friends, because I've seen a lot of people kind of became reserved because of this, and they were a bit shy to step out of their comfort zone. But this is a golden opportunity for you to actually try out and try making friends, and these are the things that you can do. So I would explain things that I did in my first year that I found very helpful, and I believe that you will find very helpful too. So first of all, we join clubs and societies. So when you join clubs and societies, you would develop this common interest between you and your friends. And also at the same time, you will spend a lot more time, and you take that time to actually know them and to actually understand their background. And after a while, you kind of have this much like conversation where they understand where you're coming from, and then at the same time, you will understand where they're coming from. As well as if you join clubs and societies, individual clubs will also have their own events and their own kind of like lepak session. So it is very good it's a very good time for you to actually spend time and get to know them better. Secondly, our university will always have events. So this is a picture of me when I went to a summer ball in my first year. And through this, you can go out with your flatmates and you meet new friends because your friends will be friends. And yeah, this is a good opportunity to actually know a lot of people. Thirdly, surprising or not, being in the student accommodation actually helps you to make a lot of new friends. Your student accommodation would typically have their own events, their own. I remember one time I had a pancake making session. This was a picture of me having barbecue in my hall lawn. So this will also promote you to actually go out there and actually talk to people and get to know them better. And the other thing is to also remember to be very open-minded. This was a picture of my friends and I. We were at a Korean barbecue. And I realized that in first year, it is good to actually go out there and try new things and to bring other people to places that you know and to also try new things that maybe your friends know better. So be open-minded, try new things, and this will help you to bond with the people around that. All right, so moving on to the academic misconception. First of all, I will talk about knowledge gap. A bit of background. So when I was in third year, I worked as a cashier in it's like a convenience store and also a merchandise store. So this store sells those little like note booklets. And I remember specifically when I first came on the first day, I saw a lot of first years were buying all these like pocket notes, and when I walked past the library, I saw a lot of people in the library as well. But the thing is, it was the first day of uni, so lectures haven't started, and I was like, "What are you guys doing in the library? Like, what are you actually preparing for?" Then I realized that okay, looking back at my first year, I was really scared about what if there's a big shoe that I need to fill when I first come to first year. So you might have this fear that you need to know a lot before coming to uni, but the thing is, the uni actually acknowledge that there are different people from different academic background. There are certain people who didn't even, let's say if you take chemical engineering, there are certain people who actually did not take further maths or did not actually take chemistry. And so they actually acknowledge this, which is why normally in your first year, it is constructed differently to other years in your uni. And I will explain the benefits of your first year. So I remember specifically in my first year, I had more small group tutorials. So you have this lecture where you have a lot of like 100 people in one room and they would teach you from a screen and that's it. But after that, I also have this small tutorial where it is more focused and you are being taught by like a PhD or a graduate teaching assistant. So you will get more focused attention and they will guide you more closely to how like to kind of mold how you think and how you approach to like problems as well. Next, if you actually struggle for your academic, you can approach your personal tutor and you can ask for extra academic help from them. So in my uni, I can ask for like someone to teach me personally if there's a subject that I was struggling. And this I found very helpful for first years if you like really can't get a grasp of the subject, that you request for this so that they can really identify the problem that you're facing. And surprise, surprise, that actually some of your modules will be a repetition of your previous subjects. I remember when I was in first year, maths was completely the same as my further maths in level. However, it's not just maths because there are certain subjects like economics, accounting that will be very similar to your previous subjects. For as long as you get a good grasp of your A level, then you will be fine for your first year. And lastly, the most helpful part of all, your first year for your degree for most universities won't count. Sadly, this did not apply for my uni, but it applied to most of my friends. And they found it really helpful because during first year was when they actually tried to find the balance. So they actually, some of them actually struggled a bit to get good grades. However, this really helped them to see what's wrong in their first year and what they could improve better. And this, I found it as an advantage for first years to find the common ground, to find a good studying strategy that would suit you to get yourself suited for university. All right, so the next part will be about studying method. So when I was in high school, I used to think that, okay, for as long as I remember my textbooks, for as long as I do my past papers, I do my questions, and I'm ready to sit for exam. But it was surprising for me when I came to uni. And I remember specifically during one of my submissions, one of my coursework, I had to write a lab report. However, I didn't know how much external research I had to do for it. So my point is that when you're in uni, textbooks won't be enough. But it's not just for your submission, it's actually for your exams as well. This is because your lecture notes would normally be quite basic. It might not cover everything that until you 100% understand your subject. So when you are in university, it is very important that you do external research, and your textbook is the very, very basic thing that you can have. You need a lot more external research through journals, research papers, standards, cases, as well as the recommended textbooks in the library. But why can't you use the same method when you use in high school, in university? The reason why is that in high school, from my observation, that I was always tested things that are quite similar. So similar concepts, similar questions, only change the numbers, change the names, tweak it a bit, then okay, that's my exam questions. But however, in university, it's a lot more critical thinking. You would have to spend a bit more time thinking about your answers, because it really tests how well you know the subject and how much you can actually twist that into application. Which is why in this case, it is very important to do external research when you start uni. I remember when I didn't do this in my first year, I actually got really bad grades for my labs. And after that, I learned from it, and which is why I realized that, okay, I need to ask my tutor to ask relevant websites that will be very useful for research. And I recommend that you do that as well when you start your first year. All right, so moving on to my next point, it's about uni ranking. When I started uni, I guess when I wanted to apply for uni, my first priority is that, okay, I get into a high ranking uni, I get the best learning experience automatically, I will gain recognition, and voila, I get job offers. However, one thing that I actually did not see was that your university ranking is not a great representative of telling what you actually like. And if I was thinking, okay, maybe because it's well equipped, well, actually that's not true. Most of the unis, I would say like almost all of the unis are very well equipped. Labs, the lectures, the teaching, the learning materials, they are very well equipped. So here's a snapshot of what I took from Times Higher Education and how they assess their ranking. As you can see, from their ranking criteria, teaching only accounts for 30% of their assessment, and 60% of them are actually about research. So if you're an undergraduate, you don't actually have to think a lot about research, probably only in your final year, but most of it would be about the teaching. So meaning, I'm not saying that ranking is totally bad. It's just that some rankings are really not relevant for what you actually like and your uni choices as well. So if you think, what should I look for when I choose my uni? Well, first of all, it's important that you actually choose a course that you enjoy. I am saying this might sound very basic, but I'm telling you, a lot of people actually they didn't even like pay attention to this. I have friends who like after third year and then they come to me, you know what? I don't want to do engineering. I actually wanted to do like economics. So really choose a course that you enjoy, because you'll be stuck with this course for years. And not only that, you will also be stuck in career of this field as well. So make sure that you are studying towards doing what you like. Second thing is also to look at entry requirement, because certain universities have super high entry requirement, and if it really put your university application on jeopardy, you can consider other unis as well, because it will give equally as good experience as well. Of course, like I mentioned about career prospects, make sure that you think about what you want to do after you finish your degree, and really, because this will really motivate you to study while you're in uni as well. Next, about course structure. So different people have different ways of studying and different, I would say like different approaches that they prefer. Some people would actually like more coursework. Some people don't actually like to attend lectures, but they like to do it online. While some people actually like to do an exam. So it is very important that you study their course structure to make sure that it is well suited to what you like and what you're used to, so that it doesn't catch you off guard in case it is something that you are not familiarized with. Next is location as well. So if you're the type to really enjoy uni, to really enjoy the city, then find a university that's in the city. But there are certain people who actually don't like to be in the city, but they like to be more outskirts, more nature, and somewhere a little bit more quiet. So choose your location wisely. And also another thing that I found between my friends and I is that whether it's a campus uni or it's a city uni, it actually makes a difference in how you actually like your uni. So do a lot more research on the location as well. Next, finance. As I mentioned before, different places will have different price points. So make sure that you actually take a look at the living costs, their rental, their university fees, to make sure it's actually feasible for you. And this, I guess, it applies more to people who are going into science subjects. Like, for example, my uni is very research-based. It's not much application for my modules, but sometimes I wonder, what if I go to a more application-based? Maybe I would, maybe I would enjoy it in a different way. So be sure that you really know of whether it's research-based or whether it's more application. But how do you find this out? Find this out to actually looking through the list of their modules and projects. So if you look at their list and you think, okay, this is something that I actually want to do, this is a university for you. So my point is that university ranking shouldn't be your major grading criteria. Make sure you fulfill all these requirements, because your university choice is about you. Make sure it is something that you really like and something that you will enjoy doing for the rest of your academic year. And lastly, academic versus personal development. So I had this mindset that for as long as I ace exams, I'll fly high. I was so used to that concept when I was in school, because all I need to do, it doesn't matter what I did when I was in probably January, February, but for as long as I ace my SPM, then I'll be okay. So it's a bit different in the UK, and I'll explain why. This would go a bit further into your degree, but I will just tell you to give you a deeper insight of what's to come. So when you're in uni, you will also start applying for things like insight days, internships, and by the end of it, you will also apply for jobs. But they would normally tell you what's the minimum requirement. And normally the minimum requirement is not that high. It's just 60 to 69, or some are 50 to 59 as well, which we call as second class upper and second class lower. So, okay, so when you apply, you have to kind of show your academic results, but they don't really ask you, do you get 71%? Do you get 64%? Nope. They will just ask you, do you get first class? Do you get second class upper? Or do you get second class lower? And if you fulfill their minimum requirement, and then you're good to go. But what actually makes you stand out is that, and especially in interview, is they will ask you about your skills. But not only they ask skills such as if you know Python, if you know programming, or if you're very well versed in Excel. Most of my interview questions so far I've gotten will always be about soft skills. So time management, conflict management, innovation, so things that you don't actually get in classroom. So what am I saying from all of this? It is very important that you focus on personal development when you get to uni. And there are a lot of opportunities for you to do this. For example, when I was in uni, I joined clubs and societies. I did volunteering. I also went for competitions. I went for events because certain companies will have events that, such as like case studies or consulting events, where in the end you will have to apply the skills that they teach you. I did a research project when I was in uni, which also is somewhat like an internship. I also did a part-time job as a cashier, as I mentioned before. I traveled with my friends, and I also go for online courses or online internships as well. So how do you actually use all these opportunities to do your personal development? Well, when I prepared for my interview, I realized that, okay, I did a lot of project management from societies because I organized Malaysian Night. I developed a lot of teamwork skill because throughout the year I had to practice with my team for dance competitions. That's how I learned how to do budgeting because I had to budget for my trips. And also I had a deep insight to how to communicate with different people, understand how sales work through my part-time job. So really, it's through all these various opportunities that you can learn all this. And for what I'm trying to say is that when you're in university, take all of this opportunity to accelerate your personal growth, because it will actually bring you further into your career, into your applications, and as well as your well-being as well. So before I end my presentation, here's a recap of what I have talked about. First of all, it's not always that expensive. Your lifestyle and rent will have large impacts on your cost of living. Always be prepared for the cold weather. And walking is a very good thing. It's safe, it's common, and also it's a pleasant feeling. You have a lot of opportunities to make friends when you're in the UK, so don't be afraid to actually go out there and try different things and try different experiences to make new friends. Don't be afraid when you come in for first year, because your university will actually try to help you to get used to university life and to get yourself equipped to progress with your academic development. As well as when you actually start uni, don't forget to actually do your personal research and always try to look for sources, relevant sources as well. Lastly, second last is that there are more criteria that you should look for when you start to choose for your uni, because essentially once you love your uni, this is how it's going to bring you far, and this is how it's going to keep you motivated. And lastly, don't forget about personal development in uni. Don't be afraid that, okay, you are spending too much time doing all these different things, because all these different things will actually really help you to train yourself in various skills, and it will actually be useful for you when you start your interviews. And as well, just, it's really good because you get to learn new skills as well. So that's the end of my presentation. Thank you so much for listening. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask.
Okay, thank you very much, Marissa. I'm going to mute could you help to mute Marissa while I speak before we go to the Q&A? Thank you. Right, thank you very much, Marissa, for if you haven't worked out, this is actually Marissa's very first time doing her personal sharing with all of you guys. I think that's a real privilege. She's very eager to share more. We can do this in the next part in our Q&A sessions. And because it's also Marissa's first time, and I think what better way to honor her is to invite everyone to turn on your video camera. We're going to just take a very quick group photo so that you know that's a memento for Marissa for her very first personal sharing about studying in the UK. Okay, so yes, if you can just turn on your video camera, we will do a quick Zoom group photo, right? I give you a little bit more time. Yes, I see that people are turning on, so that's great. Keep it coming. You won't have time for makeup, unfortunately, but you can touch up with your hair, your face, Adjust your posture. All right, I think we're good. Right, and so 3, 2, 1, you can smile to the camera. My colleagues, okay, signal, ready? Right, okay, in 3, 2, 1, smile. Okay, we can do a more funky face, funny face. Okay, one more, 3, 2, 1. Okay, great. Okay, great stuff. Right. Yes. So the next session is just going to be opening up to the floor for you guys to ask any questions. I saw there are a few questions coming in chat, so now is really your time to be asking more questions. Okay. Right. And it's a bit echoey, but I think that's the best we can do. Right. I'm going to take on the very first questions from Jeff. Yeah. How can we manage, how can the students manage their basic necessities, food, utensil, pillows, beddings, during the 2 weeks quarantine? Okay, I'm going to be directing this question to Marissa first. I will also be able to add on, if that needs to be. Marissa, so over to you.
All right, so when it comes to basic necessities, the thing about the UK is that a lot of things you can actually order online. So if you live in halls, I think, I'm not sure if it applies to all university, but I'm taking an example from my university, is that they open it up a lot more before your uni actually starts. So yeah, okay, so first of all, you can actually come to uni earlier, but because of that, you can also, meaning to say you can start ordering your things online as well. So when I was in the UK, most of my shopping, I never actually did it in person. I ordered everything from Amazon. Even my groceries, I actually ordered them online. So this would be a really great way for you to prepare for when you want to come to uni for the first time and you have to quarantine. You just order online, and normally your hall, you will have like a security guard at your hall that could take your parcel for you. And you can further ask your uni about this. They will be able to provide the guidelines of how can you put your address, or probably what website that you can go for. And normally for every uni will have about like an international officer that you can ask for help when it comes to this. So yeah, in my opinion, it's quite convenient for you to actually prepare even if you have to go for quarantine.
Okay, thank you, Lisa. Yeah, I need to add on. Yes, thank you. There's a variety of different measures currently being practiced by different universities. I know for a fact that University Academy 92, they've even offered to give up 2 weeks worth of groceries, so meaning they manage your grocery. They just ask you to choose your dietary requirements, and they will pre-order that for you. They will take care of you during the 2 weeks quarantine. So I encourage you to actually check with the university if they are making alternative arrangement. Okay, but of course this quarantine is unprecedented times. Okay, I'm sure the university will try their best to do it. But yes, what Marissa says is very true. In the UK, it's where you get the exposure to online delivery. Okay, and they are actually pretty effective. Okay, like fresh stuff, if you order on Amazon, there are even some on the same day delivery. So trust me. Okay, when we say you can trust their online delivery options. Okay, we move on to the next questions for Mikhail. Is there a certain area in London that you know for a fact or to avoid because of safety concern for students, Marissa?
Okay, so in general, in places in London, there are, I would say, certain places where you will hear about safety considerations, but most of it because there are a lot of people who actually go there. And from my experience being there for 3 years, I never actually had, like a bigger risk going from one place to the other. It's most of the time it was either okay, very, very safe, or it's just safe. So in my opinion, there wasn't actually an area that I would say is not advisable for students, but make sure I would generally go for areas that are more like, it's more popular among students, because you have a lot of other people with you as well, and to go to commute to uni so that you're not always alone. Yeah, but if you ask if a place is specifically dangerous, I would say no.
Yeah, thank you, Marissa. Yeah, I think Marissa has the advantage of being in London for the last 3 years. Yes, but I think in general, it's really learning the keywords, street smart, okay? Because I think there's bound to be a little bit of danger wherever you go, whether it's Malaysia or any other countries. Being street smart means you know, you need to avoid traveling or walking at a certain time of the day. You know, especially if you're going to an area where there are known to be social activities. If you're going late at night, you probably want to avoid them, you know, because the chances are you're going to walk into people who are not very sober. Okay, so that's always harm that's going to be intended. Okay, this is regardless of where you are. Okay, so be street smart. That's what we will advise. Okay, next questions. We have the next question from. Let me read this. Yes, next question from Mira. Questions about visa application. What happens if I don't get a test on time? Okay.
Sorry, was it what happens if you?
No, don't worry. I'll take these questions. Marissa, could you just press the mute button, the laptop mute button? I think it's on the top left. Is that correct? Hello? Sorry, we're just going to technical, just making sure there's no echo. Okay, right. Yes, so for Mira, if you don't get your ATAS certificate on time, and if that is required, then unfortunately you don't really have a lot of options. But seeing that there is still time, you could actually write into ATAS. But I have to remind you, if they don't deal with any email inquiry if your application is not more than 20 working days already. Okay, if your ATAS application has gone more than 20 working days, okay, working days, so that's probably about 4 weeks and beyond, and you still don't get a response, then you can actually contact ATAS by writing into them. Okay, but also a reminder, just to check your junk or your spam emails. Chances are they may have already been processed. So just reach out to them, and also you can go on to your university, you know, write into the admissions or the international office to seek for a bit more assistance. They will be able to perhaps just follow up and see what they can do from that end. Okay, because I think this is also unprecedented time with the COVID situations. Both whether it's at the ATAS agency or the university, they may want to make leeway, especially for latest enrollment date. Okay. You may have a course start date, but because of COVID-19, the universities are also giving a bit more grace period for you to arrive later. Okay, I hope that's helpful. Of course, welcome to ask us any questions, and if you need more support for your ATAS, come to UKAC. Okay, right. And next question from Trixie. How did you request for a personal tutor during your first year? So, quick question to you.
All right. So, okay. So generally, when you're in your first year, you are actually assigned a personal tutor, but your personal tutor wouldn't actually be someone that would be guiding you academically, but mostly to actually get yourself used to uni. So if you have problems, let's say, like you want to ask about personal for an personal academic tutor, this is a person that you should ask. So it's a bit confusing. You are assigned a personal tutor, which you can also ask for an academic personal tutor. And it is very important that you actually get to know your overall personal tutor, because this would be your first point of contact if you want any help. Let's say, I remember I emailed her so much about when I had to do online exams. So when I was struggling as well as academically, like when I first started, this was the person that I actually talked to as well. So don't worry, you will be assigned to this person, and yeah, and normally this personal tutor will give you the proper guidelines for you to actually ask for another academic personal tutor.
Okay, thank you, Marissa. Marissa, can you take this and read the last message? Okay. Right, and then we will go on. Meanwhile, we'll go on to the very last, our next questions. What's the requirement? I think this is actually a private, questions by Camille. Okay, about entry requirements in Imperial College. So yes, In simple terms, yes, the entry requirements is going to be very high, and it also depends on what courses are you applying. Okay, but I think given the reputation for Imperial College, you will be asking for, if you're doing A level, it would definitely be 3 A's at the very minimum. Some courses might even require you to do 2 A stars and above. Okay, so I hope that answer you in general. But of course, if you want to know the course specific, reach out to us. Our counselors will definitely be able to help you, right? Right, and I think Aimer, if I pronounce your name correctly, so Aimer asked if there's going to be recording. Yes, we will be probably be thinking about how to do this best, making this available either on our IGTV. Yeah, so about the recording. Okay, so don't worry. Right, yes, and I hope that also answers Hafi questions. Okay, right. Yes. Meanwhile, if you do have any more questions, do keep them coming in. Okay, keep them coming in. Don't be shy. This is your one in a million times to ask Marissa any questions. The next questions we have from Yamini. Do you have to sit for IELTS before applying for UCAS, or was SPM 1119 English paper recognized? So I think quick one. So maybe I'll just take the questions. So in general, the SPM 1119 English, there is a different marking scheme. It's under UCLES by Cambridge English. So the 1119 English UCLES is actually a pretty high standard. So you can actually use your SPM 1119 English to apply to, and it's being accepted by majority of UK university. Note my keyword is majority, not all. Okay, for a fact that Imperial College will ask you to actually sit for IELTS. Okay, so unfortunately, some of the very best university, they would actually ask you to take IELTS or another form of language test. Okay, but 80% of UK university would actually accept your 1119 English to apply for UCAS for an undergraduate degree. Right, right. This is definitely for you, Marissa. Lian. Okay, question from Lian about how do you manage your budget as a student living in London with the high rent?
Okay. Yeah, I'm so sorry. So I'm going to share a bit of my personal experience. When I first came to uni, I was not, I wasn't able to actually budget properly. So there were certain moments where I actually like barely had money for food. But this was not because of like, oh, everything was expensive. It was actually because I didn't manage to properly plan my spending. So when I reflected back, and then this was what I did differently afterwards. I have this Excel spreadsheet where I actually put, okay, how much money do I actually need for food? How much money do I actually need for transport per month, and see based on how much I have when let's say like my monthly allowance. And after minus rent as well, and then, okay, this is how much money I actually have and how much money I actually need. I found this particularly useful and effective when I started uni, because I will always have the mindset, okay, I have this certain set of money that I can spend on this month, but I have only this part, like certain part of this money that I could actually spend on food. So meaning to say that, okay, although I live in a very, I'm not gonna lie, I live in a very prime area, like my rent is very expensive, but it is manageable if you actually have this spreadsheet and you really know how much you spend on certain things, and this will really guide you. Even after a while, I don't really need to properly look at my spreadsheet anymore. I just automatically know, okay, if it's £10, then how much money do I actually have left afterwards? So yeah, make sure that you have this proper planning and proper overview of how much you actually spend on certain things. And after that, it will actually be manageable. However, there's also another thing. So when I got to, I think, second year, that's when I realized that I actually spend so much on traveling that I don't have money for food. So that was where maybe I think it's good for me to not sacrifice my traveling, because I actually love traveling, but I take a part-time job. So which was why and how I got to that part-time job, because honestly, part-time job in the UK, it pays so much. They pay me £9.20 per hour. And that's how I also manage my budgeting. I manage my finance while in the UK as well. So yes, I hope that answers your question. But if you have more queries, feel free to ask.
Okay, thank you. Yes, so I think in general, as a student, if you're studying in the UK with a university, you're actually allowed to work up to 20 hours per week during your study, during term time, okay? But when you're actually on a holiday, it's actually unlimited hours that you can do, okay? So if you are able to kind of adapt and find the time and capacity to do a bit of a side job on a part-time job, it doesn't have to be much, maybe just a few 5 hours on a Saturday and then five hours on Sunday, you at least manage 10 hours. And the good thing about the UK is that they safeguard the interests of people who work. You are at least guaranteed a minimum wage. And that means whatever job that you take, there is a minimum that they have to pay you, okay? But I can assure you, if you can find it within the university campus, you definitely get paid more than that, okay? More than the minimum, right? Yes, I think Marissa will be sharing a little bit more on some advice on tips, and I hope her previous sessions also help you get a better insight into how to live well and save well. Okay, right. Our next question is from Amira. How long? Okay, so this is more personal to Marissa. How long did you take to adapt to your lifestyle in the UK?
Okay, so I would say about probably about 2 months to a term for me to actually get used to it, because that was when I started doing things with other societies. That was when all the events are coming in, and from there I managed to actually see, okay, so this is the culture and this is what they do in general. I would say about a term would be enough for you to actually get used to. But these are things such as like communications and probably a bit of the weather, because that was when it was starting to get cold. But living condition in general, it didn't take me long at all, because it was I found it very comfortable, and it was very easy for me to get comfortable with the environment as well, because everything was so convenient that you won't really have difficulties in getting yourself adapted to living there. But yeah, so things like differences such as culture, probably I would say about a month.
Okay, thank you, Marissa. Next question is it hard finding a part-time, or is it hard doing part-time while you're studying? How did you manage them?
Honestly, I found it a bit tiring at first, but after a while, you kind of, like, it's like sports. So after a while, you kind of build stamina to actually work and also study as well. So I really didn't find it hard to actually kind of adapt to getting a part-time job. But I have this massive Google Calendar that I log in everything in there, from my job to like when I am supposed to go out with my friends, and from my coursework. So that's how I make sure that, okay, I always see like a weekly overview of my schedule and see that, am I working too much or am I working too less? Can I fit in more shifts? So it wasn't a difficult task for me to actually manage my time between university life and working part-time. It is very important that you don't overwork yourself as well, because you have to always remember that education will still be your number one priority when you're in uni. But to manage time, I would say the best thing is actually to have a very clear and effective schedule for you to view every week, and to always monitor it as well.
Thank you, Marissa, and I hope that's helpful. That sort of also answered the question from Amni, how to manage time, for doing different things. So I think we could probably do another questions from Precious Hong. How do you know if chemical engineering is for you?
Okay. I would say, okay, I guess I would have to add another misconception when it comes to this. So the common thing that people will come to uni and take chemical engineering, they will always think it's because I like maths and chem. I would say that is really not the case, because first of all, while it is true that you have a lot of math, you don't really have a lot of chemistry when you start taking chemical engineering. But what made me want to do chemical engineering was when I realized that, okay, I like to view how processes work. So I like to see how like the nitty gritty of you doing, like let's say doing manufacturing, and how they come from a very small scale and the steps that they take to actually make it a large scale that you can bring it up to like sales and production. So that was how I started wanting to go into chemical engineering, to actually understand the processes that goes behind the scenes of my, let's say like the simplest things such as like tea, or yeah, so like common things that you can see in front of your eyes. How did it happen? But it was also, I guess, aided by the fact that, okay, maybe that I like math as well, not gonna lie. But I would say that that is very good because you are doing a lot of it. I would say most of your modules would be a lot like mathematical related. So if you like math, then maybe this is something that you could consider. But be sure that you also like to really understand like things such as flows, things such as like how do you do manufacturing, and if you actually are very, I would say, curious about oil and gas and how does it affect, how does the manufacturing and extraction, this is this would be a really good guide that you will actually enjoy this course. So yeah, but my advice is that it is very, I guess I had an advantage because my brother also worked as a chemical engineer. But if you really want to know like the insights of it, it is best to ask someone who are already in chemical engineering, if you can approach that and to see what do they actually do in their work, in their day-to-day life, and to see whether or not it is something that you want to do in life as well.
Okay, that's very well said. Yeah, and of course, there are a lot of resources. Getting a personal contact who's already doing the job or studying the course like Marissa does, or even reaching out to our counselors will be able to share a little bit more insights about what the course can lead to in terms of career pathway, in terms of the core modules, what you will be studying. Okay, I suppose we can take, if there is any more, we can take one last questions before we end our sessions. And I think for the benefit of those who are eager to engage, there's actually a prize draw sessions. Okay, so there is a prize draw sessions at the end. If you are following us on Instagram, then you probably work out, you probably saw our Insta story about the prize. Okay, so be sure to stay tuned towards the end. Right. And just to add on the questions I see some of you have been asking about time management, and I think that's very important. Usually, what we would advise students is always keep your priority. Your priority is being there in the UK to do well in your studies. So that should be your first and foremost priority. But once you get you get adapted to the lifestyles and your timetable scheduling, you know how much of time you can invest in other things. Then that's when you start, in getting yourself more involved in those things. Yeah, you don't try to do too many things at the very beginning and kind of move away from your priority. Okay, and the university in the UK is a little bit different. There won't be there won't be back-to-back lessons or classes. Sometimes you only have 1 or 2 lessons per day, then they can be quite spread out. So I think one thing that we really encourage students is having that discipline, because I'm not going to lie, you have all the freedom in the world when you go to the UK, away from parents. There are surveillance. No one is going to ask you whether you've done your homework or did your revisions and stuff. I think it's having that discipline, know that why you are there in the first place. Okay. Right, I think we do have a questions. Yes, actually, spot on. Is there questions that we wanted to leave it for the last? But I think we can do this. Okay, I'll ask the questions. If you could give one advice to your younger self doing A level, what advice would that be, Marissa?
Okay, so I guess to say that if I could give an advice to my younger self, will actually know how to manage your time and money properly. So when I guess like when I came into uni, I never had proper knowledge and basic on how to do this. I was always like, oh, okay, it's in my head, or I can just arrange everything in my head. But when I got to uni, I realized that it wasn't working out because there are so many other things that you actually have to consider, because you have different things that you have to buy, different responsibilities that you have to consider. So invest your time in actually creating a platform. For me, like I use Excel on how to manage your budget, to make sure like what I said previously, and to make sure you log everything that you think you would spend, and how much money do you have, how much money are you going to spend. And this will help you greatly to manage your finances more efficiently, and to also prevent yourself from, you know, being stuck in a position where you just have no money. And the other thing is that to also, time management is key, because I struggled this a lot in my first term. And it was only after I really used Google Calendar and I sync it to my phone and log everything that I want to do for the rest of the week, that was only when I thought that my university life was a bit on track. So yeah, make sure that you have proper platform for you to really manage your time and also manage your budget, because if you don't have this stress, then it will really help you to, you know, to go through university without being like so stressed on like all these things, and it will really help you a lot. So, yeah.
Okay, yeah, thank you for the sound advice, and I hope that is helpful. As cliche as it is, you know, if you fail to plan, you really do plan to fail. Okay, so really start planning, and I think there's also one more piece of advice that we always like to get it out to students, is to start developing, you know, the mindset, taking ownership of your own decisions and your own actions, because with the finances, you manage your own finances. Okay, and you're gonna redeem the trust that your parents are giving you with the money. So start practicing being able to handle your money even now. Okay, even now. Right. I think that will be all for today. If you have questions and you didn't get to ask, feel free to reach out to us. We will have more contact.